And I think we're live. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the Trader Coffee Break. I hope you're doing well. I'm Jason Graystone.
I'm Akil Stokes. I'm still laughing at your background, man. Don't ask about where Jason's at. Just don't ask.
I haven't been locked up. I'm not banged up at all. Long story. So catching up where we can. So we wanted to run this episode because we want to keep as consistent as possible. And a good topic come up last week. It's a question that I get asked quite frequently, really. I get asked about, I want to get into trading, be honest with me, am I too old, and we get like the kind of, I don't want to say, let's say senior people kind of over 60, maybe late 50s, 60s into their 70s. And I don't consider, 50, 60 to be old at all, but we do get that question from that kind of age demographic. And I don't know if you've had it, Akil, but it's like, is it worth it? Is it too late for me? Is it too, do I have enough time? And that's kind of the way they approach the question. So it'd be good just to discuss that, because I'm sure there's many people who watch this channel or, subscribe to myself or Akil's other channels that are in that age bracket. And maybe you've got that in the back of your mind as well. So before we get stuck in, I just want to say that years go quick, right? I remember my 40th last year. I'm 41 tomorrow. Like that year just went, it's gone. And I get where you're coming from when you think about time running out. And I used to think that, I'm still young. And then one day you're like, wow, most people are younger than me now.
It hit me on an interview that I was doing the other day when someone was interviewing me, like, you're like an OG here in the trading space. And I'm like, I'm not a newbie anymore. Like in our minds, we tend to think, because we're growth mindset, we're always learning, we're always finding people to learn off of. So like, I know me and you, we always think about whatever we're in, we're always new, because we're just like sponging for new information, what's next. But it hit me for a while when I'm given the whole, you do the podcast circuit, you give your whole background. I'm like, I've been trading for Akil Stokes, been trading for 16 years. I'm like, what? How? No, and it's
Man, I know. And we are considered like veterans in the trading education space, because it just shows how like the churn of these people that come out the woodwork and just fold or give up, or they just don't stick around for very long. And when you've been going for like almost 10 years, it's like, wow, that is a long time to be doing.
I never thought of the positive side of that. You're 100% correct with, like, we've been doing this for so many years, the education side, and we're still here. We haven't slowed up. We're still preaching the same exact message. And it's like, if you look at the churn of people that have been around and have disappeared since we've been here, it's kind of it's very interesting. And it just goes to show, and if for any of you guys are going to become content creators or teachers, like, just be honest. Like, just be honest, just share the truth, because the truth never gets old. You can't run out of like shiny things if it's the truth. It may be boring. It may not get the short-term views or plays or clicks if you're looking for that sort of thing, but people will always come back to it, because the message is the message. Like, it's the way it works, and it will always be the way it works.
Absolutely. So, and it reinforces the message as well. If you're going to talk about something, do content creation, do it on something you love, because you stick around, right? We don't need motivation to do this. Yes, there's times where we think, oh man, this is a lot of content showing up all the time, but it's much easier to do it when you love it than if you had to do it when you was being someone who you're not, and you're trying to put on a facade it just goes against everything you'd want to do. That's you're not going to have longevity doing that. So speaking of longevity, we're going to be talking about trading and whether or not it's something you can get into in your older age. And I think the first point that I would make is, like, what do you want to do it for? Like, what is the objective? What's the motivation behind doing it in the first place? Because you're going to have some people, before we get into like how long it takes and things like that, you're going to have some people who just got a wad of money and they just don't know what to do with it. I worked with a guy who lived in Monaco a few years back, and he ran a brokerage, and he was minted. Like, I think he had 3 or 5 million cash in the bank in his personal account. And he could, because the laws changed, he couldn't run his brokerage anymore. So his money was literally dissolving in his bank account. So he was desperate to find ways to make a decent return. So he like, I coached him. He was one of a private client, and he ended up becoming a full-time trader. So, you know, there's that motivation, and there's the motivation of, in the bank, it's going to be giving you 0.5%. You know, how much return do you want to get? And, you know, I think it boils down to, are you actually interested in the markets? Are you interested in learning to trade? Because if you're not, I'd say don't worry, you know, don't bother. If you're not interested, as we just said, talking about trading, myself and Akil have been talking about trading every single day for years and years and years and years and years. And we show up every day to do that because we love it and we enjoy it. And it's something that we wake up thinking about. Whereas if you're not doing that, you know, forget content creation, you're not going to actually be able to do it. I think that's fair to say, right, Akil?
Yeah, it's funny you bring it up. I was having that exact same conversation with my dad. So my dad just turned, right, we're all October babies here. He just turned 68, I think. And he's been retired for, I think this is his second year of retirement. And he's starting to realize how kind of retirement works, where he's like, he's not used to having this, like he's used to having this certain income stream and blah, 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 blah. And now he's got all this free time, but he's got to be a little bit more careful with his money because he's like, wait a minute, I'm not getting this, this check isn't coming in the same way. And the retirement that he gets from, you know, his pension or whatnot is going to be a lot less. So we've been talking a lot about kind of, you know, evaluating how much money you have, kind of rethinking your lifestyle. He doesn't do anything like lavish, doesn't really spend a lot of money, but, you know, he's financially responsible. So he wants to make sure he doesn't get himself in a bad position. And he's also someone that loves to work. So he's been taking a little bit downtime to bike and do stuff around the house, but he just loves to work. So he's thinking about getting a side job. And obviously he knows that I trade, he knows that I coach. And he was like, hey, you know what? You've been doing this thing for a long time. I've got time now where I don't have to go to my 9 to 5. He's like, you know, what if I use some of this money I had? What if I become a trader and I can just make some supplemental income? Because he doesn't need a lot. He just needs something that he can spend on concerts or something he can spend on, you know, whatever he's buying. And the conversation we had was this, where it's like, hey, you know, definitely, you know, investing and having your money work for you is great. But I said, Dad, if you don't really enjoy the trading, it's going to be very, very hard to be successful. So I love what you said, because yes, it's a perfect trait to have, a perfect skill to have if you're someone that is retired, if you're, you know, you're tired of doing a normal 9 to 5 job, and maybe you don't want to create something to become a super billionaire or anything like that, but you want something for supplemental income, something that you can use as spending money, as fun money, something to kind of help your retirement or help with it. But it's also a very hard field that we're in. And like I said, if you don't really love what you're doing, it's going to be hard for you to take the actions necessary to be consistently profitable. And then that money's going to end up being wasted, because it's hard to make money. As you guys know, you got to be super dedicated on a daily basis to do it. So I love what you said about, hey, before even thinking about the money, what do I want to get from it? What can I use it for? Do you actually have it inside of yourself to do what's necessary to be successful, especially as someone maybe who's retired, who wants free time and doesn't necessarily want to work as hard as they did before, because it's going to take a lot of hard work, especially in the beginning.
Definitely. And I would say this as well, like some people who go into retirement, and I'm going to talk about retirement because I kind of think that's the age bracket where you're going too late, because I think until you hit retirement, maybe your mindset shifts slightly into thinking, do I have enough time? Whereas if you're not in retirement, it's like, oh yeah, I've got enough time left. I don't know. It's kind of a bit of a paradigm shift where the first things first, I would not believe in retirement. Like, try and think about what you want to carry on doing with your life. And if you're putting a plan together for the rest of your life, then trading is definitely something that can provide you with, you know, a great lifestyle. One of the hidden benefits that I would bring up at this point, though, is when people go into retirement and folks go into retirement, one of the things they struggle with is they kind of, it's like you stop growing because you stop using your mind as much, and you feel like, you know, you need to be doing something. Trading, even learning to trade, is the best, I would say, exercise for your brain, And if you've got a slight interest in the markets, even if you don't even want to trade live money, just falling in love with like training your brain and learning the markets is going to be an extraordinary hidden benefit to learning to trade. It's good. It's the best brain exercise that I've ever undertaken myself. So if you want to keep active and keep your brain active, and you know, there's the health and fitness side and your active body, but your brain, you know, it's one of the best things to keep your brain active. So that's a hidden benefit that you might want to consider if you've got half an interest in the market and you just want some stimulation and you want to master a skill that's going to keep your brain active. That's another great thing about trading, in my opinion.
Real quick, the guy that first introduced me into investing and trading, so it was later I found out he was this millionaire, lived a very low-key lifestyle, massive amount of money in funds, but he died probably late 90s, and he ended up dying after his wife has died because he kind of just lost, you know, that was his rock, and you know, you kind of lose that motivation. Yeah. But it was funny because I would meet with this guy weekly, multiple times a week, even in his 90s. And he was, you know, he couldn't move, couldn't walk by himself, can barely, he was sitting there in a wheelchair, mind sharp as ever. And it's funny because everyone, like a lot of his family thought, oh, you know, he's this old guy, doesn't know what he's talking about. But every day he was in the market, every day he was watching the news, looking at charts, reading the newspaper, and had the sharpest and most creative trading ideas I've ever seen. Yeah. Even in his 90s, even thinking about like, hey, like 15 years down the road, I'm like, you're not even gonna be here 15 years. Why are you thinking about it? But that was his thing. Like his mental exercise and staying sharp was just like, he was still making the same projections he did, you know, 60 years ago when he first started. And I've never seen a mind sharper. Again, physically, he was done. Physically, he was done. He was in a war, paralyzed, like all these things that happened to him in life, but mentally the sharpest. And I know for me, that's one of the reasons that, you know, even when I'm not actively trading, I just enjoy the game of like looking at a market or reading this or checking out that and just making predictions and running them through my mind. It just, I feel like it keeps you on point. And then the one time you do it and something does come up, boom, you can react right away. And you know what I'm talking about. You made it, there may be a good stock play or something like that, and you just see it. There's no hesitation. You don't miss the move, because in our industry, you hesitate, you're going to miss it. You see it right away because your mind's always ready. Then you can take advantage of it when other people can't. So it's a great exercise, man.
So I think we, you know, if you do get into it, you kind of need to know what to expect in terms of how long it takes and things like that, because that's probably on your mind. Before I get into that, I kind of just want to say one thing, that anyone who does have this question, you know, am I too old to learn to trade? I want to tell you that the question is actually like, your approach to trading is flawed with that question. Because if you're going to get into trading, you don't want to be thinking, am I running out of time? How quickly can I do it? Right. So which is why that I thought it was best to start this discussion on, you have to love it. You have to enjoy it. You have to be interested in it. And you have to have a motivation to want to learn it. And then the byproduct of consistent profits comes after that. It doesn't work the other way around. If you're searching, oh, can I do that trading thing? I've got like 5 years. Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do that? If you're approaching things in that way, it's flawed. The whole thing's flawed, if that makes sense. I think that's fair. Like, I think that's really fair. I really believe that. I truly believe that, otherwise I wouldn't say it. So if you are thinking, is it too late for me? If I tell you that it might take you 3 years to really get good at this, the question to you is, one, is that too long? If it's too long, why is it too long? You really want to go back to like why you're chasing the quick option, right? Or why you've got is it too late approach to learning to trade. That's the elephant in the room. That's the core problem, or not a problem, but that's the thing to address first. And if you figure out, oh, maybe I thought it took 10 years, then great. That may be not so much of an issue. It might just be because you thought it took years and years and years, and you want to spend some time doing other things with your family. If you're going into it, I'm desperate for money, I've run out of a plan, I'm retiring next week, and I need the quickest thing that's going to give me some money. trading is not something that you should focus your energy and attention on, because it needs and deserves a lot more attention, a lot more calmness, and time and interest into the endeavor. So that's it, right? So it's going to take you. You've obviously got a lot more time. If you are in retirement, you've got a lot more time potentially. So that's great. You can speed up the process of learning. 18 months to 2.5 years, that anywhere in between there is a fair timeline to take it seriously. And bearing in mind, if you are one of the people going into retirement, or you're a bit in the senior bracket and you've got a ton of money that you're wondering what to do with, you've then got the problem of having too much money, which might cause you to rush into it as well. It's like, it's burning a hole in my money. I need to quickly put it. So there's having no money causes you to rush. There's having loads of money causes you to rush, which is why you need to love trading. You need to love it. You need to enjoy it, because you can't win. You can't win going into it with that rushed approach. It's not going to end well for you. Akil, you have anything to say on that?
No, it's hilarious. You got too much money, it's a problem. You got too little money, it's a problem. Just be right in the, Goldilocks and the three bears. Be right in the middle. But yeah, you're dead on. We were having the same conversation this morning about prop firms and challenges like that, and we're just focused. Some of the main things I said was like, hey, you just can't focus on the money. Like, what is your motivation going to be, right? If you're overly focused on the money, it's going to cause poor actions, and those poor actions are going to cause you to fail. It has to be a labor of love. You got to say, hey, I want to do this. Like I said, I'm genuinely interested in it, and I'm just going to do the steps. And, whenever it takes, it'll takes, right? Don't put a timeline on yourself. When it hits, you'll know it. And kind of, like anything in life, judge yourself by the small deliberate actions and the improvements that you make. I would just say this for those, we kind of talked about the timeline a lot, like 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, like somewhere, let's say anywhere between 1 and 3 years is probably what it will take. And if you're someone who's asking, like, from a morality rate, I guess, like, do I have enough time? Literally, is it worth it before I die? Think about it in that, do you have more than 3 years? Are you willing to invest 3 years of learning for 10 years of success, 20 years of success? Don't forget about the fact that it is a skill that you can pass down as well. Again, my mentor, when I first met my mentor, he was probably in his 70s, right? And he was able to pass down this skill of investment knowledge to me, who I wouldn't have got into trading if it wasn't for him. And I have this skill that I can pass down to my kids. My kids, they see the charts all the time and they're asking, what is this? What is that? And I'm explaining stuff to them. Doesn't mean they have to do it, but it is a skill that they will certainly know about. And if they have the desire, they can kind of enter that field. So you got to also think, by the time you get older and even before retirement age, I think one thing we should think about in general as human beings is, what is our legacy? I always heard this cool quote where it's like, your gravestone, and there's 2 dates on your gravestone, but the thing that matters the most is a little dash in the middle. It's like, what did you do during your life? So legacy is very important. Are you giving back? Are you helping? Are you being a positive kind of force in the growth of our society in general? And by learning a skill, especially something that they're not teaching out there, right? They're not teaching this in school. You're not going to learn this anywhere else. By learning that and being able to pass it on to kids, to grandkids, to maybe a random person that just decides they want you to be their mentor, that is valuable as well. So it's not just about your personal wealth. It's about, hey, can I leave something for the future generations that can better them? And I think that should be considered as well.
Absolutely. And I'll say this kind of last point as well on, if you are thinking about it, and like Akil says, it might take you 2 years, might take you 3 years, and then you're going to have 10 years left maybe, or 15 years left, or whatever it might be. Don't have in your mind that it will be, if you get to the end and you figure out it isn't for you, or you can't quite, or maybe you lose your marbles a little bit and you can't see it through. Don't think that you'll have regret, because I've never met anyone who's learned to trade who regrets learning to trade, even if they don't trade.
Learn to trade the right way, not the reckless gamblers.
The right way, of course. Everyone in tier one There's been people come and go, and there's people that have really put their all into it and then decided it's not for them for whatever reason. And to this day, they would never say, I regret it. They love it. They love the whole process. And I can hand on heart say that if I wasn't trading now, I would not regret learning to trade. It is one of the most, it has given me more emotional mastery than anything that I've ever undergone in my life in terms of self-development. And I can say that 100%. Neil Storr in the comments has just said, it has certainly stimulated my brain in many levels that haven't been used for years and given me an interest to really get involved in such as well. So yeah, I don't know anyone who's regretted learning to trade. So don't go into it with half a foot in the water thinking, oh, what if I regret it? You won't regret it.
No, 100% true. So here's a question for you. We've been talking about, am I too old to trade? I'm sure you've gotten this one as well. What about the am I too young? Is there such thing as being too young? Maybe not from like a legal standpoint of when you can actually open an account, but is there such thing as being too young and learning how to trade? Because I know we've worked with people who have been like 16 who have reached out to us that are interested. I'm like, man, like I'm jealous of you.
Yeah. It's rare, right? It's rare that they're that young. But one thing I found out when I spent some time on S&P Capital over in New York, one of the biggest problems with a prop firm is the churn of traders. So they come in at usually about 21, they go to college, they become an athlete, or IT or an engineer, and they go into the prop firm. And until about 24, 25, that's where they start looking to leave. And the reason is because when they come out of school, they are just money oriented. It's like they don't have a purpose, they don't have a mission, they don't have a legacy they want to build. It's literally, I want money.
Yes.
So they become very good traders because they put all the hours in, they put all the hours in the day, they've got no overheads, no dependents, they live at home with their parents, they're going for it, make 16 hours a day building, working on their trading, building a lot of progress very quickly, and then they make a lot of money. And then they start thinking money is worthless. It's like, what is money? I'm just clicking buttons on a screen. The money doesn't mean anything anymore. So they become disconnected from the value of money, inertia, and then they start seeking purpose, seeking fulfillment, seeking value because it's been missing all of their childhood. And then they start going on to bigger things and they've got the money to then go and do so, right? So I would say if you think you're too young, you're not. But have your wits about you in terms of that whole life cycle. Think bigger. Think of what you would love to do with the money right now. Why you would do it right now. What's bigger than you that you would want to do trading for? Because that will give you longevity in your trading without going too far. It's all about balance, right? So you don't want to go too far one way and then drop the whole thing. You want to just maintain a nice steady flow throughout your life and have balance. So think about that now. If you're too young, if you think you're too young, think about long-term gain. Further you can see into the future, the more success you're going to have in your life. 100% believe that. So I think that's anything else to say, Akil?
No, one question by Lewis says, or not question, but comment said, I think there's more risk in taking up trading later in life than early on for a few reasons. And I think it depends. Again, yeah, I started 21, as you mentioned, and it was, one of the reasons that I really got into trading or took it seriously is because there was no risk. I was 21. I had no debt. I really didn't have any bills or anything like that. So I can afford to kind of take a leap and make mistakes and really fail multiple times without like anyone suffering. Like I owned the property that I lived in. It was a rental property, a duplex. So I didn't really pay any rent because the tenants were paying it for me. I didn't have any family. Student loan debt was about it, but I was still in graduate courses, so I didn't have to pay that back quite yet. But it gave me the freedom to fail. I often think back and I wonder, like, would I have taken, and I was doing the same thing you talked about, Jason, young, just putting in 12 hours a day, like nothing better to do, but let's make money like that. And I often think if I would have started later in life when I had, 2 kids, a wife, responsibilities, where now there's something at stake, right? If I fail, like my family might fail, like I have to provide for these people. I often wonder, what my mindset would have been. You know, would I have taken it seriously? Because I did get into trading initially because of money. I just wanted to make, I was out of college. I had nothing better to do. Let's make as much money as possible. Now I grew to love it, and that became my passion. But I often wonder if I would have worked as hard, or if I would have given myself the chance to fall in love with it, if I had those responsibilities, or would I have rushed, right? Would I have been thinking about the money too much and failed, not, you know, and all that fun stuff. So I think it kind of goes kind of back and forth, where maybe you start young and there's not a lot of risk. And then in the middle of your life, there's a massive amount of risk because, you know, you need to make an income to provide for things. But maybe as you get to the end of your life and you've retired and maybe kids have gone away, you don't have as much responsibilities, maybe there's less risk again, because now it's only on you again. So I'm sure it changes on a person by person basis, but I think it does kind of work like a bell curve type of deal.
Bell curve, yeah. Awesome. Look, this has been a great discussion, and I hope you guys, you know, I like to think that we've kind of given a sensible discussion, a sensible answers, and we haven't been outlandish, and everything kind of is, you know, I don't know. I don't want to be too out there or too polarizing. I think that we've given some decent answers, but I can promise you they're honest answers, right? So they're genuinely what I feel and believe, and same with Akil. So let us know what you think. Let us know in the comments what you think. Lewis says we hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
really love having these discussions. This is a great channel. We're about 20 something away from 1,000 now. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you're not sharing this channel, please share it. And we will be back next week to do another trader coffee break. And I want to say a belated happy birthday to Akil Stokes, because I know he hides it from everyone.
Early happy birthday to you. There we go.
Tomorrow. So Libras are just awesome, man.
There's no lie there. That's something we can all agree on.
All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the session. And remember, do less to do